You've probably met the goddess Danu 100 times online, the great mother of the Tuatha Dé Danann. And the strange part is that she's not actually in the old Irish sources at all. Yes, I'm here to be the killjoy of false Irish mythology. I'm Lora O'Brien, a native Irish practitioner, and I did my master's in Irish regional history. So I work from the primary sources and the current scholarship rather than from what gets recycled online by people who don't really understand the Irish context. The oldest Irish name for this tribe of gods was just Tuatha Dé or Tuatha Dé, the god peoples, with no goddess attached and no article, and this was extensively studied in Williams Ireland's Immortals, published in 2016. Now, the famous name Danu is pretty much a made-up thing. It's coined in the medieval times, where the form Tuatha Dé Danann appears in the 900s and shifts into Tuatha Dé Danann by about the 1200s. One of the reasons for this is because the people of God, or Tuatha Dé in Irish, was the name that the Christians were writing in the manuscripts for the Israelites. So there was a little bit of confusion, and some enterprising monk or abbot or bishop decided that they were going to put Tuatha Dé Danann in there, Tuatha Dé Danann. So the medieval texts never give the nominative Danu. They always give Danann or Danan. And the tidy form Danu is really a reconstruction, which was supplied by modern language scholars and is attested nowhere in the tradition. Literally nowhere. So the linguist John Kosh says that the phonology for this has never worked. And Danu, D-A-N-U, must be jettisoned from our memories. It is completely irrelevant as a term, as a name, and as a figure. Now, the mother figure who is actually named is Anu, Latinized as Anna. And this form appeared in Cormac's glossary around the year 900. And it referred to Anu as the mother of the Irish gods. And she was tied specifically to the two hills of County Kerry, which are still called Dá Cíc Annan, or the two paps or breasts of Anu. So Anu honestly may have been a monster sovereignty goddess. This makes a lot of sense to me, more than a national one. She doesn't turn up in the early sagas, and a scholar called Michael Clark has even suggested that the mother of the gods phrasing may just be put on her as an echo of the classical goddess Cybele. She's still in the record, even if her mother of the gods status is in question or being debated by academics, but Danu, again, is not. So why this mistake spreads? We have rivers in Europe that carry the root that looks like Dan, D-A-N, the Danube being the obvious one. And the common romantic version of this mythology is that this mother goddess carried over with the Celtic peoples who made their way into Ireland and conquered Ireland or something. None of that is actually accurate. Celtic peoples is such a misnomer. There was a collection of tribes who had some language forms in common, some art in common, some culture in common, and they have been later academically retrofitted into this grouping called Celtic peoples. Celtic people never invaded Ireland. There was no cohesive tribes or groups of Celtic people which came and wiped out other tribes here. So those are all inaccuracies, as is Danu being associated with the Danube. Now, there is an Indian goddess named Danu, so an ancient river goddess is a very tempting thing to reach for. And I do understand where people are coming from this. Alwyn and Brindley Rees have done work in their book Celtic Heritage to connect the very source roots of Indian and Irish culture. And we come from an Indo-European root, so there are definitely similarities that still cross through both cultures. But again, where Danu is an Indian goddess, Danu is not an Irish goddess. And those are very different things, okay? The Anu, though, from Cormac's glossary, has no water connection in her at all. And the name most likely comes from a root meaning earth. And some of the sources for this would be Pace, Celtic Myth and Religion on the earth root, and of course Williams in 2016 as well. So the point to really understand here is that Danu is a name, not an attested goddess. And it is a much, much later retrofit to solve a problem that the Christians were having with regard to terminology in the Irish language, literally. And if we do have some kind of mother of the Irish gods here, it would be Anu, not Danu. But even that is contested. And there is a whole connection then between Anu and Anan, who is one of Na Mairíne. And that brings in, I think, more the title of the Great Queen. If Anu is a sovereignty goddess, which I do believe she is, particularly, again, in this region of Munster around these mountains. If she's a sovereignty goddess who is specifically associated with motherhood, with fertility, with the land, which her breasts being compared to the mountains would point towards, then she may also have had the title Great Queen, while not necessarily being one of the kind of the classic Na Mairíne with the same traits as the other sisters would have, or the other aspects would have. If you want more on the Morrigan specifically and her sisters who do share those traits, such as the Bive, please go over to the Morrigan Academy. I'll put a link to that down below and you will get all the information you want on the Morrigan over there. Now, this whole video is basically the reason that the Irish Pagan School exists in one small example. Because between what gets repeated online, what gets put into books, what gets stated as fact, what gets taught by people who really should feckin' know better, and the gap between all of that and what the sources actually hold is Irish tradition taught by the people who live it rather than sold by strangers who don't. And this asks nothing of you other than to try and get as close as possible to the source material as you can, rather than taking people's interpretations. Now, I have given you scholarly opinions here, which I do happen to share, but I've tried to source where they're coming from as well. And if any person is giving you a perspective on the Irish mother goddess Danu, who is connected to the Danube, who comes over with the invasion of the Celtic tribes into this island, just be wary of them, honestly. If you want a simple way to check whether a source on Irish tradition is worth trusting before you build any practice on it, I will put a link to a video up here somewhere at the end of this video so you can click straight through. But I've also made a free trustworthy sources checklist. So you can get that at irishpagan.school/checklist. And again, there's going to be a link to that below. So I hope that's been helpful and useful. We do get a lot of questions about Danu and Anu and Anand, and we don't have a huge amount of mythology on them, as I said. The scholarly information I've presented to you here is secondhand interpretive information of the original mythology. Unfortunately, that's kind of the best that we can do. So, hope that's been helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Slán.